Hey everybody, welcome to Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Wow. So we got a good show today. We got some updates. Senate goes nuclear. That's going to be the first story that we talk about today when we get into it. But we've also got a lot of great stories. We have a Republican possibly feeling some empathy on the Trump care. Very interesting. Then how do the American people feel about Donald Trump's priorities, his policies? For example, building the wall. You know, building the wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. It turns out most Americans don't. They don't really care about the wall. Then we've got interesting news on Steve Bannon. What the hell is going on with Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner? We had a little bit of a shakeup at the National Security Council yesterday. And so, got some details on that, and you'll be surprised to find out who actually convinced Steve Bannon to stay in the Trump White House. Then we got, of course, Trump defending a sex offender. So that's always fun. Today, of course, we do have Ron Placone, contributor to TYT Nation comic, and also part of the Jimmy Dore Show. Welcome.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going. It's going. It's one of those days.
Mm-hmm.
Let me fix your screen here. There we go. That's a little bit better. We'll give him the full view of the greatness that is Ron Placone.
Aw, thank you.
So it's good to have you. We missed you on Tuesday. A lot of people at home missed you on Tuesday. So
I missed them too, but as you know, there's been some crazy YouTube news.
We actually we've talked about that a lot here on the show, so all of you know what's going on that front. But hey, we're glad to have you today. Talk about some issues. So thank you for, of course, being a contributor. It's always nice to have you on the show.
Good to be back.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that YouTube stuff. Actually, I got a lot of people to thank today. So here's a little fundraising update. Now, on the Patreon drive to save the show, to save TYT Nation from going off the air, we have had an absolutely amazing response from all of you. Now, 116 of you, since yesterday, since I put out the call, have stepped up and pledged to donate to keep the show going. Now, as you know, that advertiser boycott is still going on. We don't know when it's going to end and what it's going to look like when it does end. So there could be a lot more demonetization coming down the pike. We don't know. Best case scenario is that we get half of what we made before they pulled the ads. We do not see our AdSense revenue recovering to what it was before. So that's pretty dire, okay? So, of course, we're counting on you to help us make up the difference, and thankfully, a lot of you have stepped up to help us do so. In fact, I do want to read some of the donors off that have helped us out. And don't worry, if I don't get to you today, because there's been a lot, do not worry, I will get to you guys and gals. Now, first off, we've got $10 from the first storm and the last. Thank you so much. Regular here in the chat, regular on the show. Thank you so much for pitching in, for helping out, helping to save TYT Nation. Then we've got $10 from Chris H., $10 from David W., $10 from Robert T., $1 from James P. Hey, look, if all you can do is $1, God bless. Thank you so much anyway. I really, really appreciate it. $3 from Saphir H., $3 from Nicholas G., $3 from Kevin B., $1 from Scott N., $1 from Kale W., $5 from Malik H., $1 from Roberto G., $5 from Karen Z., $3 from No Alternative, $1 from Kathy O., $5 from Mike S., $5 from Jeff K., $1 from Claude E., $3 from Jenny W., $1 from Steve I., $5 from Virginia F., $5 from Perry R. Thank you, Perry. And look at this, $27 from Sven R. $27. You know that's a magic number, Ron.
Oh yeah,
You know
27
the,
curse.
and you know why. You know that why
Oh,
that
I,
is a
I
magic number.
absolutely know why.
So that is awesome. Thank you, all of you, for donating, for helping out, for helping TYT Nation stay on the air. And now, thanks to you guys, I'm actually starting to have some hope. Like, I was a little like, ooh, this is bad. This is going to be really bad. And now, thanks to you guys stepping up, I now have some hope. I mean, I'm like watching, bigger channels, friends of mine, just getting decimated. Like, for example, Kyle runs Secular Talk. If you haven't heard of Secular Talk, I mean, he's huge. He got, almost 500,000 views in a day. He made $1 off ads. That's a disaster. That's what we call an apocalypse. It's bad. So we're all getting hammered here, but thanks to you guys, we're managing to stay afloat. So thank you. But we do have we got a long ways to go. And I'm going to be honest. We're at 52 patrons as I last checked. That's about $500 $539 from your donations total. We need to get to 1,500. 1,500 takes care of the bills, takes care of everything, and we are set, and we'll never have to worry about taking another dollar from YouTube ads. We can live on that. We can survive on that. So that takes care of the bills, all the different things that I need to have to make the show run. So if you haven't already, please share the Patreon page. If you've donated, please share it. If you haven't donated, consider making at least a $1 or $2 donation, or whatever you can spare and afford. And trust me, I'm going to start working on ideas for bonus content for you guys, for the patrons. So again, thank you so very, very much for donating and for helping to keep the show alive. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who has helped out in this campaign. So I couldn't do this without you. All right. Anyway, let's get to some stories, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mitch McConnell has just went nuclear. He has decided to flip the switch and push the button on the nuclear option by a vote of 55 to 45. All Republicans and 3 Democrats voted to proceed to final debate on the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch. Now, Gorsuch's nomination advanced shortly after Republicans had successfully voted to approve what's known as the nuclear option, changing the Senate rules to allow a confirmation of Gorsuch and all the other Supreme Court nominees by a simple majority. Now, imagine, Ron, if the Democrats had done that for Merrick Garland. What would the Republicans be like? I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Bloody murder is what they would scream. Oh my God, I can't believe you destroyed the nuclear option. Or you destroyed the filibuster, you employed the nuclear option. How dare you overreach? Tyranny. I wonder if they're saying the same thing. No, in fact, we had Senator John McCain saying, I can't believe we're going to use the nuclear option in the filibuster, and then he proceeds to press the button. Ridiculous. Right? Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, I do want to put some focus on not on the Republicans. We knew the Republicans were going to do this, that they were going to push this asshole through. The real focus should be on the Democrats. You had 3 Democrats voting to destroy the filibuster. These were Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin, and Joe Donald.
Of course.
Joe Manchin. Big surprise. It's funny, I did a Facebook Live earlier and I blanked on his name. I don't know why. I've talked about him nonstop. And yet, the one time I wanted to remember his name, I couldn't remember his name. Isn't that amazing? I hate the way my memory works sometimes. But yeah, so those are the Democrats. The Democrats that voted to destroy the power of the minority.
Yeah, I mean, that's the resistance
The
right?
resistance.
That's the resistance. The Democrats, they're resisting. They're doing their job in resisting Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee. Um, I'm not surprised
Good job.
at all. I'm not surprised.
Good. Absolutely. Great job. Yeah. Way to resist, boys and girl. God. Now.
Yeah, it's kind of comical. The only
It
thing
is.
more comical than calling them a resistance is when who was it? Debbie Wasserman Schultz was saying how they're already a grassroots party. I don't know if you saw that.
I did a segment on that.
Yeah, she said we're already a grassroots party. Like, yeah,
Uh,
sure you are.
yeah. Okay. So I don't think AstroTurf counts as grassroots. That's not real grass. Just saying.
If the Democrats are a grassroots party these days, then Monsanto is an organic food company.
That's perfect, man. Perfect. So now, Mitch McConnell had something to say about this whole thing. He said, and I love this quote, "This will be the first and last partisan filibuster of a Supreme Court nomination." Remember that quote, guys.
Yeah.
If the Democrats ever get the Senate back, they ever get their head out of their ass and they actually run on progressive priorities and actually win, which seems very unlikely at this point, but whatever. And they decide, hey, let's put the filibuster back. Do you think that the Republicans will not abuse this to block a Supreme Court nominee if one ever comes up at that certain time for political reasons? If you don't think that's going to happen, you're living in a different world. You're not living in the real world. Because absolutely, like everything that they do is based on political partisanship and brinksmanship. It's amazing. Now, so you know the Republicans, if they ever get the filibuster back and they ever get in the minority, they're going to use it. They used it for 8 years. Unprecedented obstruction. So,
Oh yeah.
and look, they used it against Merrick Garland.
And they took the pick from Obama.
Yeah, exactly. They used it against Merrick Garland. And, well, actually, to be fair, the Democrats didn't even get a hearing. They didn't get a hearing, much less a vote. So, I mean, the Republicans didn't even let it get to that point where they could filibuster. No hearing whatsoever.
Right.
Don't tell me that wasn't partisan. You can't look somebody in the eye, in their face, straight in the face, and say, no, that was completely not partisan. What, was Merrick Garland too extreme for you? Was he too much of a big lefty? Was that the problem? Did he not love corporations enough? Because it seems to be that he really did like those corporations. Maybe not as much as Neil Gorsuch does. But he was very center/center right. But of course, they had to go and replace Scalia with someone to the right of Scalia. Again, Jesus. Now, I have some more quotes here. You have Senator Suzanne Collins of Maine saying, quote, "Some Democrats signaled on Thursday that beyond concerns with Gorsuch, they wouldn't..." Oh, you know what? I don't have the quote from Senator Suzanne Collins. I'm sorry. I messed that up. Senator Jeff Merkley, who held a 15-hour filibuster, said, you know what? On the filibuster, we cannot unilaterally disarm, so we might bring it back if we get into the majority. And other Democrats have signaled, no, we're not actually going to put it back if we ever get into the majority. So who knows, right? Senator Chris Murphy warned that the change in the Senate rules would make it less likely you're going to have a centrist moderate nominee on the Supreme Court. Let me ask you, Ron, has that ever happened lately?
What, a centrist moderate nominee?
Yeah.
No, not to my knowledge.
Not
I mean,
really.
most of Trump's picks are, pretty far to the right, and I mean, even like we said, even Obama's pick was
Center
like
right.
a center right person. So.
Yeah. So we have not had this centrist, nonpartisan judges. They've pretty much all been partisan, especially from Republicans who nominate extreme conservatives. I mean, you have Scalia that was hugely conservative, very, very right wing. And then you also have Clarence Thomas, also hugely right wing. And of course, Neil Gorsuch, massively right wing, massively corporatist, on and on. There's all these examples. Look, speaking of examples, I think this whole thing, and maybe you can agree with me or disagree with me, this shows what the right wing really does. When they're in power, they will run roughshod over you. Simple as that. They'll abuse their power in the minority using the filibuster, which is what they did for 8 years. Then when they get into power, they'll abuse that power when they get into the majority.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't care. They only care about power. They only care about getting their way. There's no bipartisanship. These people don't get along.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I have to say, they only get along when it involves enriching themselves. So let's be fair.
No, I think you're absolutely right, man. I don't know how anyone could disagree with that. That's exactly what they do, and history has shown that, especially recent history. And the Democrats' response to that, instead of really, becoming for the people and reporting to them, the Democrats try to play nice and reach across the aisle, and everybody else gets screwed in the process. You have one side completely abusing their power at every turn, and you have another side that's so quick to roll over and play dead. So it's pretty much the game's tilted.
Yeah, it's always tilted in the way that it always has been tilted, in favor of those in power and those with the wealth, against those who have neither of those things.
Yep.
And of course, now there might be a silver lining in this, or maybe I'm just stretching, maybe I'm just reaching. You can tell me if I am. Basically, when they rammed through Gorsuch and when they rammed through whatever horrific nominee they might have a chance to put in, if, for example, Ruth Bader Ginsburg happens to, retire or whatever, or die. And if that happens, I don't care. We'll prop her up with a stick. We're going to play Weekend at Ruth's, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to prop her up until the end of the Trump presidency.
Right.
Give her some NAD+, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Something. Do some voodoo. I don't care. Keep her alive. But in case something like that ever does happen, you could see them ramming through somebody who's incredibly right-wing.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's a disaster. But let me get to the good part, right? The silver lining. At least we could remind them who fucked up the country for the next few generations. And maybe, if they're lucky, they'll never, or if we're lucky, they'll never win an election again. I don't know. Again, that is a big stretch. And you know how forgetful the American people can be on some things, and how terrible corporate media is about reminding people, hey, this is the reason that your country's fucked up right now.
Yeah, well, we're very much the United States of amnesia. I mean, these days, we talk about how cute a war criminal is because he started a paint-by-numbers career. So, yeah, you cannot count on people to remember.
No, and look, the one thing, like, one of the things that really bothered me about the whole Gorsuch fight is that not once did the media really come out and say the truth about this. This is a stolen seat. You don't hear that. They didn't talk about this. They talked about how, he's very qualified. He's such a qualified nominee. I don't know why the Democrats want to block him. It's not about that. The guy could be Jesus Christ himself, which ironically the Republicans would fight against that too. They'd never nominate somebody like Jesus, a socialist Jew from the Middle East. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Who's not white? Come on. But no, it's about this being a stolen seat, stolen for Barack Obama. And nobody talks about that. And I hammered this thing. Like,
no, that
every
story
time
went
I
under
talked
the
about
radar,
this,
man.
It did. It
It
did.
went
At
under the
least,
radar, and the whole time Obama was just promoting the TPP and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it was. He did not fight for his own nominee, and that is just another failure of the Democratic Party. Just like what you said, it's an absolute rollover.
oh yeah.
Disaster. Sad.
Yeah, well, fortunately, they have good, strong leaders like Tom Perez that enable your confidence.
Oh, yes.
That guy totally,
I'm feeling so
that guy
confident right now.
definitely has a spine. I'm pretty sure I think that Tom Perez, I think to get the DNC chair, you have to go through the same process that young boys in the Middle Ages used to have to go through to keep their voices as high as possible. I'm pretty sure that's the
Ooh.
process. You just go there.
Ouch.
He's
Yeah.
pathetic.
I think we got that. You're right. But hey, look, we do have to give some of the credit to the people who did filibuster. There were 45 senators who said, "No, we're not going to approve Gorsuch. Go ahead and blow up the filibuster. We'll let you." And so, I got to give him credit. Bernie Sanders went and spoke on the floor. You also had, as I said, Merkley, who did a 15-hour filibuster, which was kind of awesome. So that was cool. So there is some hope, but not a lot. Sad.
No, not a lot. I mean, it's mostly just some lip service, so that you think like, oh, well, some people are quote resisting,
Well,
but
Bernie Sanders
really,
is.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding.
Well, Sanders is.
Well, of course, Sanders is, but Sanders has also been stifled by the Democratic Party
Of
at the
course.
worst possible
Yeah.
time, and now I feel like he's being pimped out by them. And the optimist in me is saying that he's waiting until after the midterms to really go start a legitimate third party. But the realist in me is saying he's tired, and he's going to lay as much groundwork as he can within the power structure that be, and it's going to be up to somebody else, or multiple somebody else's to kind of take that torch and run with it and continue the movement, which I think will have to be a third party.
Well, whatever direction this takes, right now, what we have is unsustainable for the Democratic Party. We can't continue to, invest ourselves in a party that seems intent on losing to clowns like Donald Trump.
Intent and content on losing. And, I mean, they had an opportunity to say, are we the party of neoliberalism or are we the party of FDR? We got our answer. The answer was loud and clear and continues to be loud and clear at every turn. I mean, we used to think maybe we even had Keith Ellison in our corner, and then I think what happened was they took him into a room and, performed whatever DNC lobotomy they do, and now he's walking in line. So, yeah, I mean, there's still some good guys left, but they're few and far between, and they're not the ones with power. And, more people are cheering for universal health care than ever before.
Yep.
More people are coming around to, that we all have a lot in common as far as our needs and wants in this country. And I think that a true progressive party would be dominant for the next 40 years. If the Democrats, for instance, were to embrace single payer at this moment, right after Trump Care was the most disastrous idea that everybody hated. They couldn't lose, but they're not going to do that because their donors don't want them to.
Sad. All right. Let's move on. But before I do, special shout out to Lisa Hauserman in the chat. Thank you for using the super chat. And donating $10 to the cause. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Again, I'm floored by the generosity and just pure awesomeness of my audience. Like, I mean it when I say I love you guys. So, I'm gonna get all weepy, Ron. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see an ugly cry.
You know what, man? I actually got a little choked up today. One of the things I do over at the Jimmy Dore Show is I help coordinate the membership, which right now, since we're in the middle of launching a new website, we have to handle that manually.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, it took me about 5 times as long as it usually does, sending out all the welcome emails. And within an hour of launching our Patreon, we got, I think, about like 200 or so in that first hour.
Wow.
And it was really, and people were sending messages. Some people even messaged me on Facebook individually, wanting to donate artwork for T-shirts, wanting to, just wishing us the best, saying we'll prevail. And that's really uplifting and
Yeah.
inspiring. I mean, especially like working for that show. Obviously, that show has been around long before I've been part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of great work that's been done before me, and has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But being able to be part of it now and just see how much people care about it and count on it is it's pretty humbling, and
It
then
is.
and being a contributor to this show as well, and doing my own thing on my channel. It's really just inspiring to know that there are people out there that care. There are people out there that know what's going on and want to save their progressive independent media, and that's really encouraging.
It's not only just encouraging, it's absolutely incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something that you can, at least it's not something that I can easily put into words. And I talk for a living, so yeah. So you guys are at home. You guys are amazing. So thank you so much. All right, a little teary here. Let's move on. All right, let's talk news. Actually, you know what? The next story's got a little bit of emotion in it as well, so that's fun. Now, the Republicans are trying to figure out where to go next on health care. See, we thought the whole Trump care thing was dead. Turns out it might not be as dead as we thought, as they're in more negotiations with the House Freedom Caucus. Now, the House Freedom Caucus, as I explained yesterday, in one of the videos that we did yesterday, they essentially want to eliminate everything that helps poor people and sick people. Now, you have so-called Republican moderates, or not exactly moderate, that are pretty worried about getting destroyed in the polls in the elections in 2018. So if they get rid of these provisions, well, they're going to get crushed. So they really can't agree what to do. Punch poor people in the face or punch them in the face and then kick them while they're down. Those are the options that we have. Now, one of these Republicans, who's more on the just punched him in the face crowd, is Representative Patrick McHenry. He is the Chief Deputy Majority Whip on the House, and he is, again, he's in favor of option one. Now, he told reporters on Wednesday that a new proposal that would weaken protections for people with pre-existing conditions is something of a bridge too far for some of our members. Boy, we don't want to really weaken some of these pre-existing conditions things in Obamacare with our new bill with Trump Care. So the first thought is, wow, a Republican that actually gives a crap? Wait a minute. There must be something more to this story. Because Republicans normally don't care about regular people. Well, I know. This is a Republican who developed empathy on an issue because he happened to experience the issue firsthand. McHenry, citing his own past medical history and that of his family, is now arguing against the weakening of certain Obamacare regulations, which he called, quote, really important protections. I was once in the individual market for a period of time in my 20s, and my family's medical history is really bad. So my understanding of the impact of insurance regulations is real. I believe I'm a conservative, but I remember the really bad practices in the insurance marketplace prior to the ACA passing. So, already, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that slowly but surely we're becoming like more like the rest of the industrialized world, where healthcare is not slowly becoming not really as much of a political issue. We're not there yet, But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in other countries, I mean, the best example I always like to point to is in Michael Moore's movie Sicko. There's he tries to make this point, and the way he does it is he's talking to a guy in Canada, and he goes, "So you support universal health care?" And the guy says, "Yes, of course I do." And he goes, "Oh, so you're really liberal then. You're a really big lefty." And the guy just kind of looks at him, sort of confused, like almost like those were two completely unrelated things. Like he just said, like, "Hey, so you really like football, right?" "Yeah, I do." "Oh, so you must be a pierogi enthusiast, right?" Like just two totally unrelated. Like, what do those two have to do? I
Right?
mean, I guess maybe I don't know. Like, I just pulled that out of my ass, but like, the
Pierogi
guy just kind of
enthusiast?
looked at him very confused, and the point was that in other places it's not. And the guy actually answered, and he's like, "Actually, I would be considered conservative, but I don't know, like, what does that have to do with it?" Like in other places, it's like, hey, we have the wealth to have universal health care, so of course we're going to have that. Nobody should go bankrupt because they break their arm. I think we're slowly getting to that point, and I think like the one kind of uh, silver lining with the whole Trump thing is that people saw Trump care and saw what an insane disaster it was, and realize, yeah, you know what? Nobody should not have healthcare in this country, and nobody should not have unaffordable healthcare in this country. And I think people are slowly coming around to that. And like we said before, what really sucks is that we don't have a party that's willing to
Mm-hmm.
embrace an efficient, universal, single payer system.
Now that's some interesting points that you make because I keep going back to an article that I saw on Vox, right? I know, bastion of journalism right there. um,
Hmm.
but no, they talked to Trump supporters, and they came out with the completely wrong conclusion of this. But they talked to Trump supporters, and a lot of them expressed a desire to have single-payer health care. Well, now that's weird, right? That doesn't go along with the narrative that they're all racist, sexist, misogynists, right? So they come back with saying, well, they wanted it because of self-interest, right? Or they wanted it because it's equality because they don't like people that are on, for example, Medicaid while they have to pay insurance premiums or some like contrived reason. I guess that sort of makes sense for some of them, but I think a lot of people are like, no, like healthcare. Yes, we like healthcare. We want healthcare, and we also want other people to have healthcare because it makes
Hmm.
sense. And not only that, but of course, there are so many different benefits, not only to society but to the individual, of course, for going to a single payer system, and that's lower premiums and not having to deal with an insurance company. So,
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, and people are finally coming around to that because they're
yeah.
seeing through the propaganda that's been fed to them by the establishment for so
Hmm.
long. And I mean, Donald Trump at one point spoke about universal health care. I mean, he didn't really put it in those words, but he said everyone's going to be covered, government's going to take care of it. I know that makes me different than the other Republicans. Of course, this was just lip service. It was just, more snake oil from the
Yeah,
guy.
and that I don't think he understands exactly what that meant. Like,
No,
I
of
don't think
course he
he read
doesn't.
the bill. Like,
Right.
Trump care, not his idea. That's Paul
Right.
Ryan's healthcare idea. That's the Freedom Caucus's healthcare idea, sort of. Except that they couldn't agree on how much they wanted to punch people in the face. So,
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is that Trump is I mean, I know this is sort of pie in the sky at this point, but Trump is so focused on just winning
yes.
that, I mean, if the right person sold him on the idea of single payer, he would push for it. Because he doesn't care about, playing partisan or whatever. He doesn't care if he has to go toe to toe against the insurance companies. He just wants to win.
Yeah. He not
So,
only
I mean,
wants to
I don't,
win,
it's
but
not going to happen with him, but, the conversation is at least going in that direction. And I think that in the big scheme of things, we're going to get closer to it.
well, also, yes, he wants to win, but remember who he's surrounded by too. Some very, very right-wing ideologues. Like you got the
Right.
Mercers, right? Very, very conservative. They gave $13 million to Trump's campaign. So they're one of Trump's biggest donors. These two people who were Robert and Rebecca Mercer, very, very conservative, very, very right wing. Those are the people that are behind the whole Trump rise. So, I mean, that's the money behind them and the ideology behind them as well. So, there's that. And they, I'm pretty sure they're not in favor of universal health care or anything like that. I think they're more in line with the Koch brothers, at least on the tax issue of, hey, let's cut taxes, which is what this whole entire Trump care versus Obamacare thing was. Trump care was a $600 billion tax cut and a tax cut of $7 million each for the richest 400 households in America. That's what this whole fight was about.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to what was in this bill that this guy disagreed with. Now, again, yesterday I talked about the GOP compromise, which involved keeping Obamacare's essential health benefits rule in place. Oh, how wonderful of them. How nice of them, right? But it would allow states to apply for waivers permitting insurance plans that don't cover things like maternity care, prescription drugs, mental health, addiction treatment, and even hospitalization. They also proposed allowing states to waive Obamacare's community ratings rule, which prevents insurance companies from hiking patients' premiums based on geographic location or health status. Now, McHenry said, when you talk about guaranteed issue, medical underwriting, and community rating, those things in tandem work as no discrimination against pre-existing conditions, which a large number of people have pledged not undo. That becomes a real challenge. So, my overall point here is that I think this guy, McHenry, he's like a lot of conservatives, at least in office. They only get empathy when something happens to them. And look, McHenry was leaning towards supporting the original bill, the original Trump care legislation, which would kick 24 million people off health care and raise premiums for older and sicker Americans. So he was still, again, punching poor people in the face, but not kicking them when they're down. So that's what this equates to. And he's only in favor of keeping those things because they affected him personally. And that again, that's the problem. There's no empathy here for other people. There's self-interest. And you can see some of this with some people. Like, for example, those who support welfare and food stamps because they get them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, what do you mean? You're going after my welfare? You're going after my food stamps? No. I didn't want you to cut them for me. I wanted you to cut them for those people. Those other people. We didn't like those other people. But you can't take mine. Obviously, that's a huge broad brush. Not everybody is like that. But there's a lot are, and it's sort of a tribalist mentality. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people. I have people in my family that are like that. I mean, one was basically arguing against Bernie Sanders, arguing against single-payer health care because, hey, I don't care about other people. I just want to take care of me and mine. Now, obviously, that is an anecdote. That's anecdotal evidence. It doesn't really amount to much. But that's just my personal experience. With people like, no, all I care about is me, mine, and my family. I don't care about anybody else. So anything that I have to pay for that ends up helping someone else, like a single payer through my taxes, I don't give a damn about.
Right. And what people love to overlook is the fact that we're already paying for
we already
the people
are,
that don't
absolutely.
have health care. We're already paying for them. When someone goes to an emergency room and they don't have health care, they're not turned away, as they shouldn't be, but they're not turned away. We pick up those tabs.
We do. In higher insurance premiums, ironically. The very thing that they, of course, complain so much about. My premium's going up. Well, that's because there are sick people that can't afford a doctor that have to go to the hospital. And hospital care, that's not true health care. And tell me you've seen this argument from some conservatives that are like, well, that's okay. We can take away your health care if you can't afford it. You can still go to a hospital. But that's not health care. All they do is treat the immediate symptoms and then send you on. Or if you're somebody who's dying of cancer, for example, and I know I keep going back to the cancer example, but I've had cancer in my family. So this is a topic that hits really close. And thankfully, okay, so I'll be honest, my dad had cancer. He got through it. He survived. He got chemo. He was lucky enough to have good insurance and a good job. But imagine if he didn't. Like, imagine that someone doesn't, and they can't afford insurance, and they can't afford to go to a doctor, and they get bankrupt. Their family gets bankrupted. They sell their, they lose their house, all that stuff, and they still can't afford it. And then what? They go to the hospital. What do you expect the hospitals to do? Basically, to give you a place to die. And that's what's going on here in America, and that's disgusting.
I have a friend that is a very young guy, and by some kind of, it was a genetic thing mostly, but he ended up getting really bad colon cancer at an incredibly young age. He's only, I think he is 30 years old.
Jeez.
And it was just a kind of genetic fluke thing. He got it, and they didn't catch it early because he was having issues, but they had no clue that they didn't even guess that that's what it could have been. They thought it was some kind of intestinal thing. They thought all kinds of things.
Sure.
And then they finally just did a colonoscopy, and they found the tumor. But anyway, he was a young guy at the time, didn't really even have health care. He was self-employed.
Right.
And thanks to the Affordable Care Act and the fact that the pre-existing condition thing went away, he was able to go sign up for the most extensive bulletproof healthcare plan he could get.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was allowed to ask him questions. Nobody could ask him, like, what, because he, like, the person, he did, like, I think he did it over the phone or something. The person was like, why, you're a young man, why do you need this extent? And he's like, oh, I just want to, just in case, and so he got this really, it was not a cheap premium, but compared to if he was out of pocket for his treatments, it's very cheap, compared to that.
Right.
So he was able to get this bulletproof healthcare plan, but had the Affordable Care Act not been in place, and had the pre-existing conditions thing not been part of it,
right,
it's hard to speculate what would have happened to him.
It is. Yeah, you're right. And and think about it again. If you can't afford that, you're screwed. You're dead. And they want to bring that back. And that's the good thing we have about the ACA with all of its problems is that you can't be denied with pre-existing conditions, and Trump Care would undo a lot of that. And so your friend would be absolutely screwed. Or lifetime caps, for example. That's also another thing that they'd want to bring back. Lifetime limit caps. So, once you could pay for insurance and pay for, have a really high premium. But once you hit that cap for coverage, you're done. It's what Alan Grayson said. If you get sick, die fast. And he got a lot of heat for that, but I think he was absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But, all right. So there's healthcare. Let's move on. Let's talk about Trump priorities and how much the American people hate them. So we'll start with the Trump wall. Now that everyone knows that Mexico is definitely not paying for the Trump wall, turns out most Americans are not in favor of it or most of Donald Trump's policy priorities. Who knew? According to the poll released on Thursday by the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research, about 6 in 10 Americans do not want to fund the Trump wall, or what I'm going to start calling Trump's folly. Apparently, according to the poll, the public opposes new spending on the wall 58 to 28%. Nearly half say they strongly oppose funding for the wall project. So it looks like the wall, not very popular, especially when you realize you're the one that's paying for it. Who'd have thought?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in fact, I've got some quotes from regular Americans, a Trump supporter and a not-Trump supporter. One of them is Wes Drought, 61, a firefighter and paramedic from Winnebago, Illinois, who strongly disapproves of Trump. I have to note that. He says, I honestly think the wall is going to be a fiasco. They want to get into the country. They're going to get into the country regardless of what you put up there. If they're going to do something, do it with the Border Patrol. If you want to create jobs, there's a job. Okay. Well, hey, at least there's that's sensible, right? Now let's see. Broken down by party, 86% of Democrats and 50% of independents oppose new spending on the border wall with Mexico. Republicans break about 2-1 in favor of the wall because they like walls. They love walls. Walls are apparently tremendous.
Especially the best walls.
Especially the best walls.
Gonna
And don't
win bigly
worry.
with those walls.
But don't worry, it's got a big, beautiful door in it. That's what's going to happen. It'll be big and beautiful. Except when it cuts through. Did you happen to read the story where there were some Trump supporters, very, very angry Trump supporters in South Texas, that are like, that wall is going to go through our land. Well,
No, I hadn't seen that. I mean,
what did you
the
expect?
yeah. Yeah, the wall is just such a painful waste of resources. Like, I mean, and I can't get over the fact that it's one of those issues. The fact that it's even a talking point blows my mind. The fact that, I mean, he increased the military funding budget by what, like 50 billion, something like that. And then this is going to be another expenditure by the party that's supposed to be conservative when it comes to government spending. Yet they think that this is a worthwhile investment. Meanwhile, we need to cut NEH. We need to cut public broadcasting. We need to cut. We need to defund Planned Parenthood. We need
that
to do
stuff's
this.
actually in the poll too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, let me get to that here. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Okay. Let's see. There's the military. Okay. Hold. All right. So there's. Let me start out first by going through some of the stuff that the Trump supporters agree with, and that the American people overall agree with in Trump's budget. You're going to be not surprised by this. Now, Americans overwhelmingly supported cuts to foreign aid. However, they opposed Trump's plans cuts to spending on environmental programs and fighting climate change. So that's actually a good thing. People were more likely to oppose than favor cutting federal help for public broadcasting and the arts, and by huge margins supported additional money for veterans programs. Now, one Trump supporter said the military is depleted and the veterans have been hurting, said Margaret Hall, 77, a Trump supporter from Fort Lauderdale. See, but here's the thing, dude. The military is not depleted at all. Do you know why we're not spending money on veterans despite giving the Pentagon $600 billion a year in spending? It's because all that money goes to defense contractors. All of that money. Or ridiculous projects, done by defense contractors. For example, the plane, F-35. So it's not going to the troops. It's not going to the veterans. It's all going to these giant, corporations that do nothing but make more weapons of war that we don't exactly need. So giving more money to the military is not the answer. And I don't even know what the phrase "the military is depleted" even means. I don't even think she knows what it means. What is the military is depleted? What does that even mean? Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those nebulous phrases that has no meaning behind it. None. Now, related to this, the most popular proposal in the Trump budget is increasing spending on Veterans Affairs, which is supported by 74% of Americans and opposed by just 8%. So, look, on this, okay, I can support that. Veterans Affairs, great. But I still think the number one way to help veterans is to stop creating more of them. That's usually the number one way, in my opinion. Now, Americans are also more likely to favor than oppose increased spending on Border Patrol, 50% to 32%, and decreasing spending on foreign aid. So again, I mentioned the foreign aid, and I'll get to some stats on that because that's crazy. 47 to 34% margin on foreign aid. More also favor than oppose spending, increasing spending in defense in the military, which drives me absolutely crazy. Because again, we spend more money on our military than any other country combined.
Yeah, I think the next 13 countries combined.
Something like that.
Something like that. I mean, it's astronomical what we
We
spend on our military. And we don't even spend it efficiently. I mean that they spend it on making bombs. They spend it on that which profits places like Halliburton. Meanwhile, they don't have adequate resources for soldiers when they come home. They don't have I mean, if your boots get, I mean, Sam Ronan was telling us if your boots get messed up, you got to shell out $140 out of your pocket to
Wow.
replace those boots. Even despite these insane military budgets, they don't cover stuff like that for the individual soldiers. I mean,
No.
it's completely corrupt. It's not only an over expenditure budget for a lot of principal reasons, but it's also misdirected as far as actually helping those that put themselves in harm's way.
Absolutely. And look, again, there's my view is there's no need to spend that much on the military. I mean, it's not like we necessarily need it. I mean, we don't need that big of a military. We don't need that much spending on it. Because, for example, if you have that big of a military and that well-funded of a military, you're going to want to use it. And what do you think we've been doing? It's our military-industrial complex. And, when you have one of those, it has to justify its existence somehow, right? And that's by creating more war and then participating in those wars.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And look, foreign aid, okay, so I promised a stat on foreign aid. Now, most people think that foreign aid makes up a huge percent of the budget. Let me give you some numbers on that. According to surveys, most Americans tend to think that foreign aid counts for at least a third of the federal budget. 31%, and some people think it even makes up half of the budget. What's the reality on that? Foreign aid makes up about a little less than 1% of the budget. 1%. Isn't that amazing? Why do people think that foreign aid takes up so much of our money? I've never understood that. I mean, maybe it's news never talking about it. I mean, we hear all this, money going to Israel, for example, or Egypt, or, other places. Oh, man, that's a lot of money. Not in the context of our budget. It's actually a very small amount of money. 1% of the budget in foreign aid. And yet a lot of people, they see that, they're like, yes, cut it, get rid of it. Look, it really is kind of amazing. It's peanuts. It's peanuts.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, I did not realize it was that low.
It is. It's super
I mean,
low.
I would have guessed a little higher.
No.
So, I mean, I didn't even realize.
It's the
that
tiniest sliver in the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting.
Again, that's super. It is super interesting, but you know why people don't know this stuff? It's because the media and nobody tells them. Nobody points out the numbers. Nobody goes and looks it up in the charts and the spending. It's an astronomically small part of the budget. But anyway, so now here's a couple of the things that Trump and the American people oppose. By a 64% to 19% margin, they oppose decreasing spending on scientific and medical research. And that was a big part of some of the cuts in the Trump power budget. And finally, most Americans oppose cuts to spending on the environment and on climate change by a 52% to 28% margin. So, like, there's most American voters saying, "What are you doing, cutting stuff on climate change and the environment? Are you kidding? Are you no? We actually want you to solve these problems." But the reason that, of course, is they're cutting all this stuff so they can afford tax cuts for the richest Americans and oil companies and giant businesses. That's what they're doing. Oh, and sorry, I kind of glossed over the fact that also Americans are more likely to oppose and favor cutting spending for public television, radio, and the arts. and that's a 44% to 32% margin. So even the arts, even most Americans are saying, no, let's save PBS, let's save Big Bird, let's save all these different, you know, these different organizations that do arts and television and stuff. So look, most Americans don't line up with the priorities of the Trump budget. Okay, they don't agree with the priorities of. Maybe it's unfair saying it's the Trump budget. It's more like the Ryan budget that he's been trying to get past ever since he's gotten into office. But Trump, he's endorsed it, and it's kind of his now. He's the president. He's like, yeah, oh yeah, that looks fine. Power budget, hard power.
Well, I think it was Harvard that, I mean, this goes beyond Trump. I mean, I think there was like I think Harvard did the study or something like that where they actually showed how like pretty much all policy ideas, public opinion is never really reflected in any of them. Like they never,
Right.
I mean, until you know, call your congressman until the phone's off the hook and until people go to town halls and start protesting, which is happening now, pretty much most policy doesn't take public opinion into account at all. I mean, there's a total disconnect between, you know, government and the people, and you know, and it's because we kind of have an oligarchy.
Not kind of, we do.
You know, plutocracy. Yeah.
It's almost a corporate kleptocracy at this point.
Yeah.
Like taking more and more from the people and giving it to wealthy business owners and wealthy corporations and, you know, CEOs.
Well, I think in the broadest sense, it's a plutocracy because it's pretty much the people with the resources control
with the money.
Things.
They're running in the golden
the people
rule.
with the money pretty much control things. If you really want to strip it down, that's what we're dealing with.
It's the golden rule. The people who have the gold make the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now I don't have any gold.
No, we do not have any gold here. Okay.
But I'm investing in Bitcoin. No, just kidding.
Oh, yeah, you know, if we don't get funding, we'll have to turn to those gold sites. We'll have to be one of those buy gold now.
Just pay me in silver.
You never know. Gold's going to be big now. Buy gold. No, I'm kidding. Never do that to you guys. Oh, okay. Ron, do you have time for one more story?
Yeah, let's make it quick.
Okay, this should be a quick one. This is Bill O'Reilly. We're gonna skip the Bannon story. We're gonna have a couple of Bannon stories tomorrow on what's going on because this is like grab the popcorn time because it's gonna be great. All right, but first, again, Bill O'Reilly. Now, Bill O'Reilly is a loathsome human being who has, of course, once again settled in a sexual harassment lawsuit with a former Fox News employee. That makes God knows how many sexual harassment lawsuits against the guy. So now, let me give you an example of how much money Fox News has forked out for this guy. $13 million since 2004. For all the different women that have sued him over the years for sexual harassment. Now, these are conservative women. They worked for O'Reilly. They were on his show. Eventually got phased out, or they were, people who worked on and off the camera. So, look, they worked for Fox News. So, what he would do is he would sexually harass them, call them up while he was apparently masturbating, which is disgusting. So, there's some pretty messed up stuff. And there are transcripts of this. So, it's not like we're making any of this stuff up. No, there are transcripts. We know exactly what he was doing. We could go and read what he was saying in some of these transcripts, although I would rather save you from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so pathetic he has to shit where he eats, I mean, it's like, this is a guy that, he is famous and, maybe infamous is the better way to put it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of women who would, just by who he is, be like, oh, no. But I'm sure there's a lot of apolitical people out there that would just be like, hey, this guy's got status. That's pretty cool. I mean, I guess he could try to tap into his fan base for his sexual needs, but I mean, I guess maybe he's not into women over 75. I don't know what the situation is, but it's pretty sad that he has to dangle a carrot. I mean, we talked about this on the Jimmy Dore show. It's pretty
Sorry.
sad he has to dangle that carrot over employees' heads to try to get laid when you're that rich and that powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, he could afford the highest end prostitutes that are out there. Why? And
If
you
only we
can
made it
find them in
legal.
New York. What?
If only we made it legal. But he's against that because that's immoral.
You think he wouldn't? I mean, I'm sure he that wouldn't be beneath him to pay
No,
for.
no, of
I mean,
course.
I don't judge it in general. I'm just saying from
No, no,
his
no.
perspective. I don't think that. I mean, yeah, I know he plays the moral high card, but he also is an alcoholic that abused his wife and has said terrible things and done terrible things and is a verbally abusive person to work for. Yeah, I don't think it would be some moral high ground why he wouldn't do something like that. So why not just do that? I mean, he's got the money. Why do you have to like do something that I guess it's just the risk of like, oh, I'm doing something dangerous.
Ugh.
I could get in trouble. I don't know. I mean,
No,
I
I don't know.
I just don't understand why you're that rich and
I
that
just think he's a
powerful.
perv. I
Why
just
you
think
have to
he's a perv.
shit where you eat.
I just don't think he has. I don't think he can stop himself. Really, I think it's one of those things where he can't stop himself. He just has to do it. That's my read of the whole thing. But no, it's some of the phrases that you were using. Dangle the carrot. Really? Do you want to give me that visual? Thanks. Appreciate that.
I just
But
think it's kind of funny imagining like if he like when he's trying to like spit game, he talks
oh,
about how like he talks like the way he does in his show. Like if he's like,
Talking
"Darling,
Points
today's
Memo
word
thinks you're
is
hot.
vibrator. I want you to use one. I want to watch you use one."
No. Talking Points Memo thinks that you should use that vibrator
Yeah.
and let Talking Points Memo watch.
What a weird.
Well, okay. Anyway, we're trashing on O'Reilly, but the story's actually about Donald Trump. Ironically enough.
Oh yeah, because he
Yeah.
defended him.
Yes, he actually took to the New York Times to defend O'Reilly, saying, quote, "I think he's a person I know well. He is a good person. I think he shouldn't have settled. Personally, I think he shouldn't have settled because you should have taken it all the way. I don't think Bill did anything wrong." Classic Trump. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
settled. But wait, didn't you settle almost every lawsuit that came your way, Mr. Trump? For example, Trump University? Just saying.
Yeah. That's
Why-
pretty much
why
that's
settle?
pretty much in some ways Trump's subtle way of saying I'm guilty. Because I mean he's saying that
Right.
he doesn't believe Bill O'Reilly's guilty. So he's like, well, you should never settle if you're not guilty. Well, Donald Trump has settled in every single situation, which
Mm-hmm.
means, well, Donald Trump clearly guilty. Bill O'Reilly, I think he's guilty too, but I guess Donald Trump doesn't think he is.
No, he does not. But
Because Donald looked into his heart.
no, is that what it is?
He's got a good heart.
Oh, channeling George W. Bush there.
That's
Wonderful.
right. The guy that's now a cute paint by numbers guy. We forgot about all those war crimes.
Yeah, we
now
did.
he's having photo ops with Ellen.
But no, look, I have a theory on why Trump is defending O'Reilly because Donald Trump is just like O'Reilly on these issues. Remember, this is a guy who said this. Remember those tapes with Billy Bush where he promised to. Yeah. So that's the guy. He can't help himself. Remember, he's like, oh, I can't. When I'm around beautiful women, I can't help myself. I start to kiss them.
Yeah.
I need the Tic Tacs. Which, by the way,
Yeah,
Tic
I was gonna
Tacs.
say he sent Bill O'Reilly a care package of Tic Tacs and
Oh.
locker room attire and said, "Hang in there, buddy. We're gonna be okay."
Again with the terrible visuals. Really, hang in there. No thanks. I'll pass.
Hey man, you're drawing those conclusions. That's
Sure.
on your conscience.
Uh-huh. Disgusting. So, but here's the worst part about this whole thing, Ron. As if there could be, an even worse part of this whole situation. This happened during Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month,
Right.
which is, yeah, disaster. Sad. What a disgusting human being. And a disgusting group of human beings and perverts. This is a guy we've got running the country. And O'Reilly is, I mean, he just got renewed at Fox News, right? His contract. And his show is one of the highest rated on Fox News as well. This is who a lot of people watch. This is who a lot of people look up to. And again, we have the President of the United States, who's the same kind of person. Doesn't that say something about our culture?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. And the fact that, I mean, out of all the pundits on Fox News, I mean, O'Reilly is actually reasonable, comparatively speaking. Compared to Sean Hannity, compared to, a lot of, like, other people on that network, he's actually reasonable in comparison, which is insane. Which is absolutely insane. And, especially, like, looking at Sean Hannity, he's smart in comparison. Again, underline the in comparison part.
That's important.
Please.
That's important.
I don't want anyone in the cut. Ron Plagone just said Bill O'Reilly's smart and reasonable. No. I said, I mean, compared to Sean Hannity, he is both of those things. I mean, Sean Hannity's not very bright. He just isn't.
No, he's not.
And he is, a lunatic. I mean, and Bill O'Reilly is actually compared to that, like further along the sanity scale in comparison. So yeah, I mean, it speaks volumes.
Yeah. Well, O'Reilly knows who butters his falafel.
Yeah.
Just saying.
He certainly does. He certainly does. And the thing to get more outraged about, I mean, I was talking about this because he got in trouble kind of recently. He also got in trouble recently for saying something racist. Again, we talked about that. Yeah. I mean, between the racism and the other sexual harassment case, I think, like, if things get any worse for Bill O'Reilly, he might stop hating poor people. Dare to dream. But he, like, actually would fit in at any other network. And that's, like, I mean, that should be the most disturbing thing. The fact that somebody like this, if Fox News ended his contract tomorrow, MSNBC and or CNN would jump to have him, and he would fit in fine at either network. Yes, including your, quote, progressive MSNBC.
Are you kidding me? They haven't been progressive for pretty much ever.
Hence this part.
Yeah,
Hence this part.
Remember how they stopped leaning forward.
I know some of the viewers and listeners are a little bit at ends when we go after MSNBC, but you know what? They've been faux progressive. Rachel Maddow has been very disappointing. And Bill O'Reilly would fit in just fine there. I mean, they're a network that's been bragging about being more conservative.
He would be right after Chris Matthews.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they would fit in right together.
They would fit in, and I think, if anything, at this particular moment, that network is being the most irresponsible out of the three because, I mean, CNN, we kind of just count for nothing. Fox News, we know, is a fringe right lunatic haven. MSNBC is supposed to be kind of the clearest picture of the bunch, and they're just doing their best McCarthy impression, and it's working, by the way. Now we might have conflict with Syria now. Great. Which would lead to conflict with Russia. So they might get what they want.
We already have boots on the ground in Syria too.
Yeah.
We're in a tenuous situation. Not to get too far off topic.
Now.
But yeah. I mean, literally, we've got 4 different armies sitting around Syria right now, 4 or 5. Got the Iranians, got the Russians, got our guys, whatever the Syrian rebels are, Al-Qaeda, whatever, ISIS, all pretty close to each other, and that's never good. That's never good. So it's a powder keg, and it's going to go off. And it's already bad there, but it's going to get worse. But that's off topic. But again, Donald Trump and Bill O'Reilly creeps of a feather stick together.
Perfect.
Boom. All right. Ron, thank you for staying over. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
It's good to see you
Thanks
again.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to wrap up the show here. Way over time. But again, thank you. Tomorrow we'll have another great show. We'll get into the Bannon stuff. Can't wait for that story. Get the popcorn, everybody. Bannon and Kushner are fighting. Oh, I love it. God, I love it. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Let's get those patrons up so we can continue doing independent progressive media. Support Jimmy Dore Show as well. With Ron Pacone, support my show, Secular Talk. We all need your help. So do what you can.
Weird time, guys.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah.
Bigly. Need it bigly. Don't let the corporate media destroy us. So, and that's kind of what it feels like is happening too. So they're trying to take us down.
We'll have to get into that another day, man. I have some theories too. I know we all do, but yeah, we're gonna have to kind of see how this all unfolds.
Yeah,
but it's not very uplifting at the moment. The viewers are uplifting.
That is the only uplifting thing about this.
YouTube is not uplifting.
Right. So yeah, the only thing uplifting is the support from you guys. So, but we'll have to see. We'll talk about that probably at length. Maybe I can see if I can get conversation with Kyle about it as well. So, we'll see. I hope so.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ron. We'll see you next week, Tuesday.
Yeah, we should be back to normal next week.
All right. Awesome. We'll see you then. Thanks again.
All right.
Everybody check out Ron Pacone at the Jimmy Dore Show on his own channel and, of course, on TYT Nation. And any comedy shows that he's got coming up. With that, thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Love you guys and gals. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.